Hello, writers. Welcome to Session 8 in our test prep unit. Today, we're going to continue to talk about narratives and prompted writing. So, have you ever turned on the TV or joined your family and they were watching a movie, but the movie had already started? Yeah, it can be really frustrating too when our narratives don't have a strong beginning because sometimes we just don't know what's going on. So today I want to teach you that whenever you're writing a narrative, it pays to draw on what you know about writing powerful narratives. Specifically, you can draw on what you know about story structure, about elaboration, and about craft. So this is our same teaching point as last session back in session 7, but today we're going to focus in on our introductions. So let's take a moment to review our narrative writing chart and really think about what I'm saying in the beginning part today. I brought my reader into the world of the story. I may have done this by showing who was in the story, describing where the story was taking place, including small actions that were happening. Middle, I showed what the main character did. And if it's a personal narrative, you know that's you. I helped readers picture what happened. I did that by telling it bit by bit and telling what I thought, what I or the character did and said and thought. I tried to make a good ending, and I might have put a final action or feeling or lesson at the end. Let's think about revising. So remember when you're revising, you rewrite the important parts? And you work on writing twin sentences. So look at your sentence and think if you can add another one. What was it like when you did that? What did you do right after? What did you think or feel or say? You want to try to bring the characters to life. Find parts where the character could say or do something, act out or imagine what happened, and rewrite to tell exactly what the character did and said. This last one is super important when you're being a good test taker. You're not going to be able to have peer or teacher conferences, so you want to become your own writing partner. Really take the time to reread your writing, pretend you've never read it before, ask questions of yourself like you would of a partner, and take the time to revise and rewrite. Here are some of the videos we looked at yesterday. I'm not going to replay any of these now, but if you want to go back and re-listen to one, you can take some time to do that during Writer's Workshop today. So let's practice together. First, I'm going to read the story to you. There's a monster under my bed. Why were you sleeping with your flashlight on, Jackson? My mom asked. There's a monster under my bed, I exclaimed. My mom raised her eyebrows. She bent down and looked under my bed. Unless the monster is a dirty sock or an old baseball, there are no monsters under your bed. I was not convinced. I knew what I had heard the night before. I needed to come up with a plan of action before bedtime. I was going to trap the monster and prove to my mom it was real. That day after school, I set about creating my monster trap. I found a box in the garage and propped it underneath my bed with an old wooden ruler. I tied a green string to the end of the ruler. This way, when the monster crawled under the box, I could pull the string and trap him. But what could I use as bait? My friend Max said the monster under his bed loved to eat dirty socks, but just one from each pair. So I went to my older brother's room and stole a gym sock from his bag. Whew! It smelled horrible. When it was time for bed, I surprised my mom by heading upstairs without a fight. I kissed her goodnight and jumped into bed. After she turned out the lights and closed the door, I reached under my bed for the green string. Now, it was time to wait. So what are some of those really powerful narrative moves that they did here? Yeah, I see some specific dialogue. We see it go back and forth between Jackson and his mom. There's really specific details down to the green string or how the monster only liked to eat one stalk. But now let's imagine we were asked to write an introduction to the narrative that sets up the action to come. How might that introduction go? I mean, I could make an introduction by just writing I heard a noise. That would be a good start to the piece, right? But would that be a real strong introduction? No way! We didn't draw on everything we know about narrative writing. So let's take a look at what are some strong types of narrative leads and beginnings. An action that hooks the reader. So here's an example we looked at earlier in the year. Come on, rain, I said, squinting into the endless heat. That does a really good job of pulling the reader in. So how might we start this passage with an action that hooks the reader? What might the characters be doing? I thought of one just now. How about if I started it with, I slammed my closet door shut and breathed a sigh of relief. There wasn't anything in there. Do you think that would hook you in as a reader? Right, and my action, I slammed the door shut. I breathed a sigh of relief. I'm really pulling my reader in with the action. Another strategy you might try is to start with some dialogue. An example from earlier this year was, "It's just a truck, Mama," I say. So how might we start, "There's a monster under my bed," with some dialogue? I'm thinking, and we know in this excerpt it does start with dialogue. We're a little further into the story, but if I was going to start at the beginning, "You can't scare me," I yelled into the darkness. Do you think that would make you want to read more? I know I would want to, because who are you yelling at in the dark? And I know the dark can be pretty scary. Setting the scene. It was a cold day in January, and I was sledding in the park with my family. How might I start, "There's a monster under my bed," by setting the scene? I feel like it's kind of a scary story. I know Halloween can be a scary time of year. All right, I think I got one. It was a windy night a few weeks after Halloween. The air was cold, and I pulled my blankets tighter around me. What do you think, readers? Are you there with me? Yeah? Do you think if you wrote like that, your readers would be so interested in your writing? You're right, I know they would be. One other one that you might choose is starting with figurative language, and the example here was crash, bang, boom. I heard scary noises in my closet. I find that kind of funny because this might actually fit, but in this case, we know the monster's under the bed and not in the closet. So take a second to think, how might you start this story using a sound effect or figurative language? I think I would go simple here. Scritch, scratch, squeak, scritch, scratch, thump. Do you think that would pull you in? I think so. So now, writers, I'm going to read you the story one more time. And while I'm reading it, I want you thinking about how you might craft your lead for this passage. Then I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to work on whispering it and planning it out loud. "There's a monster under my bed." "Why were you sleeping with your flashlight on, Jackson?" my mom asked. "There's a monster under my bed," I exclaimed. My mom raised her eyebrows. She bent down and looked under my bed. "Unless the monster is a dirty sock or an old baseball, there are no monsters under your bed." I was not convinced. I knew what I had heard the night before. I needed to come up with a plan of action before bedtime. I was going to trap the monster and prove to my mom it was real. That day after school, I set about creating my monster trap. I found a box in the garage and propped it underneath my bed with an old wooden ruler. I tied a giant string to the end of the ruler. This way, when the monster crawled under the box, I could pull the string and trap him. But what could I use as bait? My friend Max said the monster under his bed loves to eat dirty socks, but just one from each pair. So I went to my older brother's room and stole a gym sock from his bag. Whew, it smelled horrible. When it was time for bed, I surprised my mom by heading upstairs without a fight. I kissed her goodnight and jumped into bed. After she turned out the lights and closed the door, I reached under my bed for the green string. Now, it was time to wait. All right, work on whisper and writing your introduction in the air. 2 minutes. Off you go, writers. Welcome back, writers. All that planning sounded amazing. So now you're going to go really try this on your own. In your Ben 2 Digital Writer's Notebook, you'll find a spot for you to type out the lead to the story, "There's a monster under my bed." And I really want you thinking about all you know about strong narratives. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to work on this, and then we're going to come back and have a share. right, let's hear some of those awesome responses, friends. And then after we share, you're going to go ahead and get some more practice with this. In your Bento Digital Writer's Notebook, you'll find several short fiction passages, and you're going to continue to follow the directions on those slides to practice writing beginning, endings, and especially dialogue. Off you go, writers.